Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 481, Herald of Red Blades. I'm surprised you've shown up, Harold says as Observer Wu exits the air car that had just landed. Why is that? Observer Wu asks him. The area was very recently hot. Protocol states that it's not safe for an individual as important as yourself, Harold says, and Observer Wu snorts. True, however, considering that it's cooled down enough that you seem to have kicked off a party centered around 3 nations and more joining in by the minute, I figured it would be best to strike while the iron was hot and you weren't crowded in by the billions. Fair enough, sir. Will you be needing the full explanations for things, or have you already prefaced this portion of the records? Harold asks. We will need the full explanation with the answers, Observer Wu says before pausing as he sees a younger empty handmaster, an Anglo woman, leap from one side of the massive crater that the celebration was happening around to meet a withering groom with numerous massive leaves growing from his back in midair. The leaves catch the wind and actually give him lift with minimum axiom use as they pummel each other in midair. She tries to grab him and hurl him downwards, but the leaves catch the air and she has to launch herself down in an attempt to kick him out of the sky. The left side of leaves go limp and he drifts out of the way to allow the girl to drop like a meteor into the pit. And there is some laughter even as she starts cursing in a language Observer Wu does not understand. She then reappears from where she originally jumped, even as the Floric gracefully glides on the churning cold winds and guides himself back to his own standing point. There's some backslaps, a lot of joking, and both the Anglo woman and Floric man step to the side to be replaced by other people. As you've just seen, this has become a martial party, basically a mid-air combat contest where you jump out and meet your opponent in the middle of this pit. You trade blows and whoever touches the ground first loses. It's friendly, spirited, and fun. The only rule is no trying to kill your opening. The unofficial rules are keep it friendly, don't take it personally, and have fun. And the rest? We're opening it to everyone, so we'll see all sorts of people show up, and then vendors and spectators will follow, then more proper politicians. I may be fighter between me and my brother, but here is my big move to get the Floric accepted. Have them as one of 3 hosts to the party. Break bread with them, laugh with them, strive and succeed, and indeed even fail beside them. Politics will follow the flow of people. Let it flow with the Floric. And why are you helping the Floric? Be sure to explain exactly what the Floric are, in case this is seen out of order. Is there even going to be a proper order to your report? I've made it modular just to address that concern, Observer Wu reminds him. I know, it's just that even that information needs to be repeated for the sake of modularity. I am aware, Observer Wu says with a slight grin. Now, for the sake of the explanation, we have several things to go through. The Floric, empty handmasters, and the withering grooms. To start, the Floric are a predatory species of plant-based alien, vaguely resembling a green-skinned person with a pumpkin head. They come from an obscenely dangerous homeworld where literally anything that qualifies as alive is both your predator and your prey. Not a food chain, but a free-for-all. This gave them powerful instincts that young or mentally weakened Florics struggled to resist. This in turn gave them a terrible reputation for cannibalism, which led to the Florics staying out of general public life and keeping to themselves until roughly the last 24 hours or so. And what has changed? Basically, they've determined that there is enough change in the galaxy to try again, or rather the Withering Grooms, the organization to which many of the plant men you will see around here belong to, has determined that it is time to expose themselves and see. Ah, is this Observer Wu, the human with the reputation for integrity? A Floric man in sleeveless robes and wearing a heavy fur shawl asks. I am, and you would be. Observer Wu asks, holding out his hand, and the green hand of the Floric clasps it for a single shake. Torvin, Star of Manacles. Torvin will do. I'm a member of the Tundra Sons. We are a scholarly organization of the Floric. Historians and record keepers primarily. One of half a dozen male-dominated Floric organizations, among many hundreds for the females of our kind. What are the others? Observer Wu asks. The Grease Brotherhood. They're mechanics and inventors. The unified philosophers who are scientists and theologians. The Beastkin are animal tamers and horticulturalists, and finally the Starstem. explorers, and expert navigators. Very interesting. And the withering grooms? Best way to describe them in a way you will understand is martial eugenicists, in the way that their ultimate goal is to strengthen our entire species by making themselves as strong as possible and having that pass to their children. Make sense? Torvin asks. What about men that want to do other things? Cooks, or police officers, or the like? There are differing levels of membership for each one. I'm a dedicated Tundra son. However, most of our order are casual, as in they're signed up for updates and will occasionally meet up with like-minded friends. I think I understand now. Thank you, Observer Wu says. So what was it that made the Withering Grooms decide that now was the time to move back into the galaxy at large? And why didn't any other organization try to stop them or protest? There are protests ongoing at the homeworld, the near colonies, and the distant colonies. This is a historical moment. The Withering Grooms are facing censure as we speak for this exposure. Other groups are defending them. As much as this is a political mess on this side, it's an equal-sized one on ours. Maybe even bigger, because it's also getting personal. A lot of family drama and personal relationships are being dragged into and out of this, Torvin says. Have you? My sisters and mothers called me screaming. They then got into an argument with each other. Things kept spiraling. I hung up an hour ago and they're clearly still busy with each other and haven't tried to call back, Torvin says. Anyways, I'm here to take notes because no matter what happens, we need to pay some attention. No doubt, is there some way to get legal access to your archives, or possibly a copy of them? That's the sort of treasure I'm out here to collect. The treasure of knowledge. I like you human, and the answer is yes, but it will take a bit to gather everything and put it into a format that can survive the deprivations of cruel space. Still, you're heading to Centris after this, correct? I am. I'll have it correlated at the Distant Wilds Embassy. It will take time to get it all together and straightened out, so best to have it there. I see, thank you very much. You're quite welcome, Torvin says as his gaze shifts. Oh, Kudzu incoming? Kudzu? The one that fought your Saint Redblade. He's a controversial figure on a good day. And today is a good example of it. He causes chaos. Then why is he tolerated? Because he exemplifies everything about the Withering Grooms. It's almost as if he is living distillation of the intent of the organization made manifest. He keeps pushing himself in every way imaginable and has become incredible for it. But he's also nothing but what the organization is striving for. And caution isn't actually in the mission statement, just implied, but since it's not outright stated. He's reckless. He has the title of immortal because he, simply put, should not have survived the things he has gone through. Him being alive makes zero sense. He has on record survived situations that kill 99.9 continual amounts of people that undergo them hundreds of times. 476 times to be precise. With today being 477 with the containment breach of his immensely dangerous weapon mid-combat. Oh, because of his sheer resilience and ability to adapt and grow stronger, he is one of the most powerful Withering Grooms alive, but also one of the younger ones. He makes absolute mockeries of men who have been at this for generations by comparison, Torvin says. There are some people like that who left with the Dauntless. Observer Wu notes as he recalls Pilot Bravo and the list of things he'd gotten up to. There always are, Torvin says. Always what? Were you talking about me again? Kudzu asks as he arrives. Observer Wu examines him quickly and notes the thin frame and swaying vines-washed branches, making him reminiscent of a willow tree choked by strangling vines, with a pumpkin head. Not the image one would expect when dealing with someone defined as reckless. Somewhat, we were speaking of how you've grown so quickly, and how events like what happened today are not that uncommon, Observer Wu states. Well, you don't learn to do new things by doing the same old things, right? Kudzu asks. You need to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself, not destroy everything, someone calls out, and Kudzu just rolls his eyes. Everyone complains, but note they're left behind because they're not good enough. Screw you, someone calls over. We can take this to over the pit. No way, you're crazy. I'll do it, Harold says. You're worse. the person calling says. Who are you, and why are you just randomly screaming at us? Harold demands into the crowd, and there is no response. They're running. Let them run, Kudzu says. People want to boast about being one thing or another, and then when someone comes along and shows them exactly how to do what they want and be what they want, oh no, I can't do that. Oh no, it's insane. Oh no, it's unreasonable. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. You find it all the time when you find unorthodox answers to anything. Lateral thinking tends to trip people up too. I mean, hell, Observer Wu is breaking protocol and showing up in a zone that's still cooling, and that's because he can't fully believe that I've turned a potential disaster area into a party. Perhaps because the answers you discover generally cause as many problems, if not far more, than they solve. Life is full of problems. Life is an endless series of problems to solve. No matter what you do, there is going to be another problem. Yes, but making more problems isn't the answer. Every answer makes more problems. Even the answer to the question of what you want to eat between a bologna sandwich or a salad leads to more problems. Everything is a problem. Life is a problem. What I'm going to say next is a problem in need of an answer that will always inevitably lead to more problems. That is life, Harold explains. You get it. You actually get it, Kudzu says in seeming shock. You actually understand. I do, Harold says, and Kudzu nods. Is this just you, or is this the undaunted? A bit of both. I'm a fairly extreme undaunted, and I'm not sure if it's luck or raw effort that's getting me into all the fun situations that I keep finding, Harold says before gesturing to his eyes. I mean, I'm not sure if it was my own doing or outside influence that created the situation I force evolved my bloodline, but it happened. And I still need to figure out if the Jameson family back on Earth was affected too. So the thing with the eyes and markings, the one pouring out insane amounts of axiom is universal with your family? Kudzu asks. Seems to be. All other Jameson clones and my nieces and nephews, not to mention Herbert as well, have all been changed. All of us pour out insane amounts of impossibly well-attuned axiom. Most people only get a bit of it at a time and only get more through effort. Me? Endless amounts. It just keeps pouring out. Well, that explains your endless energy, Kudzu notes. Also, what do you know about unusual floric hybrids? Harold asks, and Kudzu gives him a look. Not much. I'm a combatant. We'll need to get some scientists. Tundra Suns? Unified philosophers? Harold asks. Less the boys' clubs and more dedicated midwives, Kudzu says. But you can talk to them through the Tundra Suns and Unified Philosophers. Okay, good. I'll scare someone into getting Forrest looked at, Harold says, and Observer Wu gives him an odd look. Yes? Just surprised. You always make me forget how on top of things you are, and then remind me. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 482. HHH, Herbert's 100 Harem. And gotcha, Herbert says cheerfully as he catches Branch and helps her swing onto the ladder. Is this really the fastest way through the ship? From the entry points? Oh yeah. The whole ship is designed in all sorts of fun ways. Not only is it stupid tough, but you can smash it apart and it'll still work for the most part. There's also the fact that there's strategic choke points all over the place, meaning we can fight for weeks without pausing if we need to. And that's before Axiom or allies or any of the stuff we've learned since exiting cruel space becomes part of the equation, Herbert explains. You really are a martial species if your first thought on potential first contact was potential war. Think of it like this, Herbert says, opening the hatch up as he leads them out of the zero-gravity tunnel in the ship. You can more easily pretty up and make a military structure look presentable than you can reinforce and defend a more diplomatic one. And besides, isn't diplomacy just conflict through words rather than violence? Didn't you say it was how to tell someone to fuck themselves without them realizing it? Diplomacy is many things, and it is that as well. In that case, it's called subtle tactics, like using someone like me to fight. Sneaky. Yes, because point-blank grazer blasts are sneaky. Breyer says as he climbs up the hatch, last in line. If no one is left to report your presence, then no one reports your presence, and stealth is maintained. In that light, a nuclear blast is a useful tool for assassination, Breyer argues. If you don't care about collateral, then it is. It's hard to dodge, almost guarantees a kill, and is rarely expected in the assassin's arsenal. Herbert says, and Breyer scoffs at that. A private stream sticks his head out of a nearby oxygen closet. The Admiral requests you stop talking about nuclear fire while escorting people diplomatically. Ha, he looks a lot like you, Stamen notes. We are one. Herbert and Private Stream say together, because that's not incredibly off-putting. In all seriousness, he looks like me because the Private Streams are a program I started, and therefore the persona of Private Stream is based off a performance I pulled off that let me carry weapons openly in public, not be questioned, and allowed me to essentially fade into the background, even when I was up front and in the foreground of a situation. That's a very useful level of social stealth. An eager young cadet in over his head isn't dangerous, it's cute. They're not a threat to watch out for, they're a child to tolerate. Private Streams can get away with so much more than other soldiers. It's actually a near parody, Herbert says. And I'm being serious, I've been outright shocked at what I can get away with in the Private Stream persona. People are willing to overlook children, almost by impulse. Yep, Herbert says. I do miss being full size, but the sheer benefits of the nonsense I can get away with. Maybe one day I'll find a replacement for the niche of field duties. Maybe the Private Stream program will be... It has been that successful, you little goof, Caddy chides him. You just need to grow older again. You've already done it. Shh, I'm being dramatic and maudlin, Herbert says in an over-the-top tone. Then a small parade of Private Streams moves by, holding a trays of baked goods, steaming carafes of drinks and all the cups, plates and cutlery for a diplomatic meeting. Oh, we're nearly late. Late? Admiral Cistern likes to have something to sip in the middle of meetings and also likes offering snacks. Food is an excellent grease to the wheels of diplomacy after all. Herbert explains as he starts to lead them through the ship and they pass more and more guards as Admiral Cistern's office isn't far from the bridge. It just made sure that he could be there if needed, and there was all sorts of excuses to have all the guards in one area. Hey guys, meet our new friends! Herbert greets the bridge and they turn and toast them all with their drinks. Clearly the Private Streams have been keeping them all topped off with coffee. A couple of them are clear non-humans and also holding steaming mugs, which means they've been enhanced, which in the case of a couple of them is a bit of a surprise to Herbert, but he mentally updates his tallies and moves on to leading the Floric into Admiral Cistern's office. I was just about to call for you to put some speed into it, Mr. Jameson. Admiral Cistern's greeting is paired with a gentle rebuke. Sorry, sir. I was getting caught up playing tour guide and host. If not for the warning that you wanted me here, I would have taken even longer. The warning? The only warning I sent was to stop talking about nuclear weapons. Ah, but the coffee passing us by couldn't be a coincidence. I'm afraid that's more a self-warning then. The path the Private Streams took to get here was entirely of their own choosing. Ah, well played, Herbert replies. Anyways, Admiral Cistern, may I present Briar of Thorns of the Withering Grooms, Star of Manacles, also known as Stamen of the Tundra Sons, and Miss Utico Branch. Not sure of her actual rank and titles, but she's one of the more willing ones to talk, and I'm a communications officer, Utico says. Communications officer, Utico Branch, Herbert says cheerfully. I see Ambassador Woods is here. Good to see you again, ma'am. You look like you've had an entertaining day. Yes, I have, Ambassador Woods says. And of course, my dear Floric friends, this is Grand Admiral Garfield Cistern. Cistern, Admiral and Admiral Cistern are the proper ways to address him. Does he have issues with his first name? Breyer asks. My first name is fine, but my family name is preferable in formal and business settings, and this is both, Admiral Cistern says. Now please, have a seat. I've taken the liberty of having some snacks you find tasty sent up, and a few others if you have the taste for more baked goods. He indicates the board of cut and sliced meat on his desk, and a collection of several drinks, all hot. We also have tea from Lavaron in both black and green, coffee, hot cider, and hot chocolate. Oh, yummy, Herbert exclaims. Mind your manners, Herbert, Admiral Cistern says fondly, and he then starts bundling around the room, getting everyone situated and starting to explain the drinks and snacks and fetching everyone everything they want. You do know I know what you're doing, right? These are classic disarmament tactics in a diplomatic situation, Stamen states. Yeah, and it's not like it's not going to work. You being aware of it changes nothing. You're going to calm down no matter what with snacks and drinks in a comfortable setting. And if it doesn't work, then you were looking to be paranoid to begin with. So it either works regardless of your awareness, or you are going to find any reason to be paranoid no matter what, Herbert says. Uh, it's like in a fight, having the perception and skill to see any and every attack coming means nothing if you're not fast or skilled enough to actually do anything about the incoming attack. Sure, it can be useful to see that someone's about to kidney shot you, but if you can't do anything about it, then you're still taking a fist to the kidney, no matter how much you call it. Herbert explains as he fills up everyone's plates and cups before having a couple of cookies and slices of sausage for himself and a mug of hot chocolate. Burst energy and lasting energy need to be balanced after all. Not to mention the look of a child having a sweet treat disarms even people who know better, which the baleful look from Stamen says he knows what's up and doesn't like that he's falling for it. Herbert just gives him his most delightful smile, and the axiom around him responds to produce the image of twinkling stars and blooming flowers around him, just to really, really rub it in. Stamen points directly at him incredulously. Mr. Jameson. Sorry, Herbert says, and he clamps down on the axiom. Little tricks like that had become too easy since the change. Now then, Mr. Jameson has informed me that the Floric have not only a rich culture, but a great deal more to offer to the galaxy than first assumed, and a desperate need for friends. Especially considering that you, Mr. Breyer, have decided that the time for hiding and subtlety has passed. The galaxy has changed, and we must change with it, Breyer says. Despite it pointedly not being your call to make, Ambassador Woods says. You could have stopped me. No, I could not. The armor and weapons of my guard are almost entirely ceremonial and non-lethal, and none of it on a level that could slow down even a middling withering groom, Ambassador Woods states. You didn't even protest, Breyer says. Technically they did, but Utico begins and Breyer turns to her. Did you censor the communications? We need this to happen. We need to push out and be part of the galaxy at large. Utico justifies herself as Herbert dunks a chocolate cookie in his hot chocolate and gladly eats the treat. It actually won't take much in the editing and framing direction to spin this as something more acceptable and understandable. A unified force of cannibal monsters? Scary. A huge mess of numerous different ideas, intentions, morals, and standards, and the memory of them having a cannibalism problem might even get lost in the noise. And if not lost, then dulled, if not outright drowned out. Miss Branch, that is far, far beyond the purview of your duties. He was going to go ahead anyways. All I did was not relay a message that was going to be ignored, she justifies. Can I see the message now? Breyer asks, and there's a pause. Admiral Cistern simply takes a sip of his coffee. There is a bit of arguing in a Floric language before Admiral Cistern brings down his coffee mug with an audible clunk onto its coaster, gathering the attention in the room to him again. While fascinating, I was hoping we could speak more about the relations the Undaunted and Floric could possess in the future, and perhaps in the present as well. As we appear to have helped host a party on Zalwar surrounding the crater caused by the duel between a Mr. Kutsu. He is cut off as Ambassador Woods groans in disgust. Is there something wrong? Kudzu is an issue. He routinely gets into issues that honestly should have killed him. But he has pushed so many limits and so much has been learned from him. He's one of only a small handful of individuals who have ever even encountered the material he's made his preferred weapon out of, and most of the others had enormous organizations assisting them, and often only did so for scientific concern. He hooked up a chain to his and used it as a weapon. Electron-depleted matter. That is quite the achievement if my understanding of the substance is correct. The sheer industrial ability to mine from stars is the kind of thing that can enhance the abilities of any nation it's part of. Admiral Cistern says, "Sir, perhaps a focus on the potential food?" Herbert chirps up. "I had considered it, but the idea of mining stars directly is a one-off. Only Kudzu has ever managed to do such a thing, and it's just another thing he was assumed to die from, and failed to do so," Ambassador Wood says. Um, well then, as Mr. Jameson suggested, what can you tell me about potential exports? It's not hard. We know how to capture and contain the creatures of the homeworlds, but, well, containing them when they get out. They do taste good, though, or well interesting. They will need to be cooked through, as the inside of that biteberry I had. I could feel the internal organs. Herbert explains, and Admiral Cistern leans to the side and gives him an even look. You ate the entire thing? Everything but the teeth and legs, and even they might be edible with some cooking. If grape and crab are your thing, then biteberries are great. I have some on me, Breyer says. Please do not release wild animals, edible or not, into my office. Admiral Cistern remarks blandly. But they're tasty. I don't care how tasty it is. Only tame creatures are allowed in this office. Oh, okay, I'll be just outside, Herbert says, slipping off his chair and heading for the door. Turn around, Mr. Jameson. Now is not the time, Ambassador Cistern says. Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 483, Herald of Red Blades. So this thing is kind of scary for its simplicity. Most axiom weapons are big, complicated series of totems that go off one after another to do absurd things, or axiom effects basically stored for later. The big things that take a lot of calculations, energy, or time to pull off. But this is different, the Withering Groom says as he examines Harold's sword. Split and push in two separate directions. The split is so fine that basic friction makes it basically worthless. On its own, it wouldn't even cause anything more than discomfort on a person. But that's just the thin edge of the wedge. The other two force things apart so violently that it's effectively torn in half. He turns the sword around. And the back end has reinforcement, restoration, and other maintenance effects. Reapplying the damaged systems, it's as simple as it is elegant. This is simple? Harold asks, and the Withering Groom gives him an odd look. Yes, compared to many axiom weapons, this is simplicity itself. Have you seen the number of effects on... No, here, look. He says, handing Harold his sword back, and Harold slides it back into its sheath as the Floric man slowly pulls out and presents a large bearded axe. It looks almost ornamental with how much Kutha filigree has been worked in to add more and more totems. Thermal energy storage and expulsion for freezing then burning in that order. Reinforcement, weight shifting, temporary weight enhancement. More reinforcements. 2 teleportation beacons, one to have it call you and another to send it. Long distance link up with another totem to access and control these totems from afar. Electrical dispelling? I'm not sure why, but without that, it builds up a dangerous static charge. I've had a few fingers cooked and nearly had a leg taken off when it made me jolt at the wrong time. This is a lot of reinforcements and restoration totems. It's the big thing with axiom weapons. They get used hard. Like I said, yours is almost elegantly simple. It rarely, if ever, makes contact with the enemy, and therefore needs much less in the way of repairs. Indeed, Harold says as he takes a step back and gives the axe a slow swing. His eyebrows go up as he struggles to stop the suddenly enormously heavy axe, and he struggles for a moment to keep balance with the weapon. Then the extra weight is gone. He lifts it up and examines it again. That would have chopped clean through a mecha suit. No problem. Yeah. Yes, it would have, and has in the past as well. The Withering Groom says, and Harold holds his weapon out to him again. He takes it back and tucks it away. Hopefully, the Nerd Squad is following the KISS methodology. KISS methodology? The Withering Groom asks. It makes more sense in English. Translated, it means, keep it simple, stupid. Sure, a person can add on more and more effects and abilities to something, but there quickly comes a point where everything is getting in each other's way. Harold says thoughtfully. Did you ever think of having a second head on that axe that splits the difference? What do you mean? Well, the constant shift from cold to hot can't be good for the meal of the axe. It has to be increasing the need for those repair and imperviousness effects. So maybe a second head? Or even a hook or hammer on the opposite side? Think halberd and divide the load among the heads to stop it all from getting too cluttered. It might also help with that static buildup you were concerned about. Although adding a spike to the bottom of the weapon to channel the electricity out of might turn an issue into an asset. That, that's a very interesting point of view. Are you sure you're as young as you say you are? You're incredibly mindful for someone whose memories come from someone under a century of age, the withering groom asks. He is. Another Floric, a Tundra son, says. I've looked into him. He's not only got the memories of someone less than 50 years of age, but of someone just shy his 31st birthday. Oh, right, I have to get Herbert something. Also, what do I count as my birthday? The day I was sequenced or the day I was taken out of the tank? Harold wonders before shrugging. Tank day, the fluid in glass was basically my womb, so you're incredibly blasé about your clone nature, the Tundra son says, and Harold shrugs. I've had counseling, time, and lots of purpose to keep me distracted and happy. At this point, it doesn't matter where I came from so much as where I'm going. I mean, hell, I've never even met my original cloner. Some people would find that at least mildly disturbing. Well, I'm majorly awesome, so huh? Harold remarks before he glances around as he senses something. Oh, excuse me. Things are in motion and don't need my hand on the rudder anymore. So I'm off to party with family. You're what? Follow and see if you must, Harold says as he starts moving towards an air car coming down in the landing area. By the time it touches down, he's walking across the cleared-out landing zone for more people to join, the still growing and still intensifying party, and he throws his arms out as his wives start to emerge. Girls, great to see you. Hope you enjoyed the show. Welcome to the after party. Harold, just how? Private streams. There's an army of eager young troops who can and will pull miracles out from under their hat a moment's notice. With every passing second, we're getting more vendors, broadcasters, fighters, performers, and everything else. They're also helping with the legalization of all of this. This is going to be Zalwar's first major, all-arcology celebration. By the time people realize what it's about, we'll already have been celebrating friendship with the Floric for a week straight, Harold boasts. Now, who wants to go down the food lanes and taste what's on offer? What about the tundra worms? Winifred asks fairly, and Harold turns to point at what looks like telephone poles that have ropes strung between them. On each of the ropes is a single square item dangling. Totems. Repelling totems. The smarter pet owners on this world have them on the collars of their precious little ones. But they're a relatively recent invention, so not everyone knows about them yet. Them being here as advertisement, and the company producing them was one of the first to set up stalls. We also have a few selling warming and weather-based totems to keep people nice and comfortable. They're all selling at a loss today in order to advertise good and hard. That will, today. Tomorrow they go back up to full price, and they'll make it all back in short order, I imagine, Harold says. So, what is the legal status of this mess? Giria asks in honest curiosity. Currently pending. We have a lot of documents to allow a festival to go off, but there's all kinds of government lethargy slowing it down. Unless someone decides to break their own laws and stops it, it all lines up legally, just about half in and half out of all sorts of loopholes. So, this is only technically legal? Javra asks. Technically legal if you squint at it. Tomorrow. It's pending, technically legal status. Harold clarifies. I'm going to go and make fun of the fighters before the police get here. Excuse me, Agatha says. I'm going with, Javra exclaims as Uma and Dumaya follow. Harold shrugs as he turns back to Winifred, Giria, and Velocity. Hello, Rain, he says without turning around, and she sighs dramatically and walks out from behind him. It was a good effort. Anyone else? You're not anyone else, so it was a wasted effort, Rain remarks grumpily. Oh, that almost sounded affectionate. Give your dear old dad a hug, Harold says, walking up with his arms open, and Rain ducks behind Velocity. Hey, I'm not your... Velocity begins to protest. Twofer, Harold says, sweeping both Vishanyan family members into a big hug. Let go, Rain protests. Hug back first. I will not. Will one from me work? Velocity asks. Yes, Harold says, and Velocity hugs him back. After a few moments, he lets them both go. Or rather, he lets Rain go and continues holding Velocity, then shifts his grip to carrying her princess style. So who wants to try out the local snacks and games? Both are showing up in huge amounts. Maybe we should stay with the others first, so we can do things as a family, Giria asks. Sure, that's more than fine. I've done the crazy bit when I should have been on break, and now I'm trying to go back to being on break. So lead the way. Scene change. Pit side impromptu celebrations, Zhao War. An enormous crystalline scythe twirls through the air, double-headed, highly inefficient from pure mechanical standpoint. Something like that would be heavy, impractical, and have nowhere near the reach it would need in a practical fight. It's in the webbed foot of a meadow-wing Valryn. The webbing on the foot stretching so much that it allows an amazing grip on the weapon, despite the foot not being a talon like the other Valryn possess. Then she turns in the air, and the scythe blades shatter to form a massive ring of flying blades. The Metak opponent slips through the crystal blades, deflects more with her wings, then suddenly moves with them all, and seems to be riding on the edge of the knife and laughing as she goes. Then the Valryn suddenly starts twisting so much that everything shifts directions in the massive storm of blades, and there is a cry of "ouch" from the Metak. A little blood is falling, but considering the tiny figure is just flapping back while holding a foot and having it glow even as it heals, tells all that needs to be said about how much danger she feels she's in. That was mean! The Metak protests a half heartbeat before the shaft of the scythe cracks her in the top of her head, and she's sent down to the ground. Ow! It's a fight, not a hug circle, you goofy little bat! The goose-based Valryn snaps down at her. Oh, come on, it's a party! A party based on a brawl. The Valryn finishes as all the shards of her weapon start coming back together and forms the elegant-looking crystal scythe. She then glides over to her landing area right nearby where Observer Wu is, and he smiles as she lands. The Metak is retrieved from the pit and brought to the medical tent in short order, even as the next combatants. A Lidris who's levitating numerous stones, and a Kruga who has sent out a series of self-levitating ropes to swing off of, take to the skies above the pit. Excuse me a moment, ma'am, Observer Wu says, and the Valryn turns to him. I am Observer Wu. I was hoping to speak to you about something. Oh? Yes, that rather fascinating weapon of yours. You see, I'm gathering information for the human homeworld of Earth, so any information at all is a blessing. And what do you want to know? Whatever you feel like sharing, ma'am. Consider this time to freely boast to an appreciative audience. Thank you, but no, I'm not really the boastful type. Ah, well, my apologies for wasting your time then. Please have a good day, ma'am. Observer Wu bids her with a smile. Now hold on. Just because I don't like to boast doesn't mean I don't like some attention. It's just having it for something superficial like what I own or how I look is... Of course, as I said, I'm here to learn anything and everything I can, so anything you'd like to talk about at all is welcome. Excellent, because the first thing I want to talk about, she says as she tucks away her scythe and then reaches for a communicator. Then she activates it and brings up the picture of a tiny head poking out of an egg. Just how adorable my little boy is. Look at that. He pops out, and he has part of his shell as a hat. That's criminally cute. He kept it in balance and everything. Yes, that's very... Observer Wu is more than a little taken aback at the sudden turn in her attitude and decides to just go with it as she starts building up momentum as she shows him image after image of her blessed firstborn baby boy. First child, and she got an adorable little son that she will love and hold and adore for the entirety of his life, and evidently, she has full plans to take him through every moment of his development at roughly 15-second intervals. Joke's on her, though. This is the sort of thing that scientists back on Earth will eat up. Or is the joke still on him for him needing to stay here and listen to all this? Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 484. Ch.481 Herbert's 100 Harem. Sir, Lady Tycampid on approach. The warning interrupts the conversation of the room. Don't get in her way, she's on our side. Admiral Cistern says, and Herbert gets up off his chair, moves it into a proper position, then starts outright dragging the chairs the others are in and insisting they stay seated as he rearranges the room and puts together a drink of hot cider and a platter of snacks. Ma'am, he greets Lady Tycampid as she sweeps in, the plate and mug he had prepared on a platter and held above his head. Drink? Snacks? Yes, well done, Private Stream. Officer Jameson at the moment, ma'am, Herbert says as he follows her to where she examines the room, then decides to be more diplomatic and sits in the chair Herbert vacated. Herbert activates a small device on the underside of the tray and leaves it hovering to Lady Tycampid's left. He then goes to the door and stands at ease with his boots shoulder-width apart and his hands comfortably behind his back. Oh no, up front, little man. Since it's you and not a private stream, I need to speak with you. Mainly about the panic you've been setting off among the counselors about unleashing gamma radiation weapons in atmosphere. To be fair, he was firing them at me, Breyer says, holding up a massive thorny hand. Yes, about that. They're also demanding to know when the Floric got themselves men. We've always had males. We've just kept them safe through secrecy, Ambassador Wood says primly, until someone decided that secrecy was no longer necessary. It is. It's a time of change. We have no better time than now to be fully embraced by the galaxy. The galaxy does not want to embrace us. They have made this point screamingly clear countless times through history, and even with the changing circumstances, the fundamental problem we have with the galaxy and that the galaxy has with us has not been changed. And what, in your opinion, is the problem with the galaxy? Lady Tycampid asks as she delicately picks up a small piece of skewered meat up, taking a nibble of the treat as raises a delicate-looking eyebrow. The problem is that we are super predators that have a reproduction method that is very uncomfortable to the rest of the galaxy. What is common for our homeworld is regarded as nightmarish for the rest of the galaxy. Even if we cause less death and devastation than other predator species, the way we do it causes fear. We are hungry, and what would kill nearly anything else simply slows us for now, but also increases our numbers. So when the child is born from violence, it must eat. Then things get even worse. The fact that fully grown members of your species, capable of speaking, using weapons and even piloting air cars and ships, rampage out and devour people doesn't help. And this is why we have issues with the outer galaxy. We grow too quickly. You cannot tell our green stem infants from our hardened bark elders. By compare to your own people, we grow to adulthood before we can even mentally understand things. But without that understanding, we are still as children. And children chew on things, eat anything they can, poke into things and break things to try and understand the world. That doesn't matter. Florics still go out and cause unimaginable harm to others. If not for the miracles given by literal gods, lives would be forever lost or twisted. It takes literal divine intervention to reduce the harm you cause from debilitating to merely traumatizing. As if there were ever anything mere about the trauma of some sharp-toothed monster tearing your limbs from you and devouring it before your eyes. Lady Tycampid notes with disdain, "Tell me, my dearest Grand Admiral, was it not a Floric that devoured a child piece by piece? One who is now in the care of one of your men?" "No, actually," Admiral Cistern states. "Pardon?" "It was a snict with the degenerative disorder they are known for," Admiral Cistern states. "But wasn't there an incident with the Floric that—" "Herbert, the full story, please," Admiral Cistern asks. "A young Floric of the Evergreen family was tricked by a criminal Aphuk, a renegade battle princess no less, into funding the public murder of a gravid mother and her unborn children as she was preaching to a crowd during a day of celebration. The Floric child herself caused no harm to the team and was in fact harmed by the team when she mistook their investigations for some kind of game and tried to attack them. The child was Slithern Hardytail is a free fleet-born Great Plains Nagasha teenage boy. His home fleet and family was destroyed by the chaining pirates and slavers, and he was slowly being cannibalized by one of their brutes before the chaining took a swing at us undaunted. They got only Captain Gregory Schmidt in their net, and the moment he got an opportunity, he broke out. Killed an enormous number of the chaining crew before rallying other slaves to sweep over the rest, rescuing the badly mutilated and brutalized Slytherin. He adopted the young Nagasha and is now his doting father. Slytherin has been making incredible steps to recovery and has at least a 3-hour session with psychiatric help every 3 days on average. He was recently awarded the Crystal Star of Leblanc, making him both a citizen and a noble of their empire for services rendered, Herbert explains. "Oh, my apologies," Lady Takamped says, "but the fact I casually make such a mistake is telling. A reputation for horror does not simply tumble out of nothingness, which is why I myself am against the moves that the Withering Grooms are making to bring the Floric into the galaxy. I like things the way they are clearly not going to be anymore. We're not safe around you and your people, and that lack of safety goes in both directions. Our young and infirm are threats to you, and as a result, you and your people become threats to us. The less contact, the better." Ambassador Wood states, and Lady Tekamped looks mildly surprised. "We cannot grow without expanding and exposing ourselves to new things," Breyer argues. "We are alive, as is the galaxy around us. We all change and grow and adapt. The time of change is here." Lady Tekamped looked mildly interested as she finished nibbling at her little sample and puts the toothpick down in the proffered bowl on the platter. She then turns to Stamen. "And you? What is your opinion, Mr. Floric?" Lady Tekamped asks. "I don't have one. I'm a historian and archivist. Give the current events time for the smell to wash away, and I'll be able to give you a proper opinion. I understand things best when looking through the backwards lens." "You can't wait for things to start fossilizing to have an opinion on them, Stamen," Breyer counters. "Perhaps. But for all that I can take notes down quickly, I'm a slower thinking. I need time to grind through things and think. Things are changing fast, and I personally do not like that. But my dislike is born of the fact I struggle to keep up." "Is this the best record keeper to send for these events?" Lady Tekamped asked, pointing directly at Stamen. "He's a braver one that's also proven to be social enough for all this." Herbert answers. "I was hoping to hash out who exactly would be best to send as official representatives of the numerous divided organizations of the Floric. Have you now? Well, I can help with that. If the Floric are indeed pushing out once more into the galaxy," Lady Tekamped says, rising from her seat and sauntering around Admiral Cistern's desk, "then speaking to me is one of the wisest things you can do." She then sits in Admiral Cistern's lap, and Herbert simply makes sure the floating platter is in position next to her, and then returns to his seat. "Now then, let us speak. You want to either cover up the recent changes and go back to the way things were, or reinvent your image. And darling, I am the queen of image, so let us speak of image." Her favorite lace fan has been snapped out and is partially hiding her face. There is polite applause from Herbert. Scene change, approaching the dauntless centress. "I see that things are moving in an interesting way," she notes calmly as she walks her guest behind her. An invisible shadow learning from her. Something to get used to. "Is this wise, Lady Mallow? We are going into the chaos with few numbers, and you are exposed," cautiously regarded foes asks, being trailed by a Vishanyan to give them exposure to galactic politics, and the sheer chaos of Centrus was new. But it came with a hefty pay increase to keep going with it, so she had little room to complain. Besides, even without the pay increase, she'd have done it. It was technically in all the details of her job. But the Empress was long in the habit of using every opportunity she could find to increase your loyalty to her, and this was no exception. "There is no need for numbers. We are going towards allies, and we have ways to retreat and recover should things go wrong. Could we have not summoned him to his office proper in the council building? Yes, however, the thing about politics is that it's similar to a fight. Give and gain ground in a dance to put yourself in the best position to have the other side view you favorably. This is where bloodless wars are waged and battles beyond mere brutality are." Lady Mallow begins to explain to her student before looking up and away and seeing a drone zooming right at them. "A threat?" cautiously regarded foes asks. I don't know," Lady Mallow replies before suddenly the drone accelerates and they rush forwards and the drone reorients to aim directly at the Vishanian. Lady Mallard picks up her skirt and uses Axiom to reinforce the footing she has around her high-heeled slippers. To the ship. Now. They race fast, and the drone continues accelerating even as it starts building Axiom. A guard sees them coming, moves to the side, and draws a large rifle and takes direct aim at the drone. The bang of the gun is followed by the blast as the attack sets off a payload inside the drone. Inside now. We'll deploy countermeasures in case there are more. Salvage. Get on that debris. We've had an assassination attempt. Scene change. Admiral Cistern's office. The dauntless Centris. Oh boy, Herbert says, slipping of his seat. Sir, we just had Lady Xueting Malor and her assistant, cautiously regarded foes, attacked by a drone on the way to the Dauntless. They're unharmed, but we're putting things on alert. Also, you have 2 more guests oncoming. You have work to do, Operative Jameson, Admiral Cistern says. Yes, sir. I'm going to start chasing people now. I'm going to call in a quartet of streams to guard and serve in here while I'm out, Herbert says before snapping off a salute and receiving a nod. Who would be so bold as to attack an Apuk ambassador just outside the ship? Lady Tickenped wonders. That's what I'm going to be figuring out, ma'am. Don't you worry. The enemy isn't allowed secrets, and they just put themselves into that category, Herbert says as he opens the door, and 4 private streams rush in to take up positions in the corners of the room. He heads out, takes a right, and is gone. It takes him only a couple minutes to get down to the external laboratories where pieces of the drone are being looked at. Okay, preliminary examination results? Incoming, give us a... One of the scientists begins before pausing, blinking and then turning back to his work. Something wrong? Forgot for a moment that you're... Well, the scientist notes. That's fair. I often get confused at who the bastard behind the mirror is, Herbert says, coming up beside him and standing on tiptoe to look at the table. He's short in this state. My Mark II eyeballs are telling me that there's a lot of thermal damage, and it's consistent with a plasma discharge. The drone was a self-guided bomb. It was hit with a .50 caliber round from a rifle. Impact must have set, if off then, Herbert says before pulling himself up to stand on his hands as he looks over the table. He leans forward and is now off the ground with his feet dangling as he overlooks the assassination weapon. Looks like there's a piece of a symbol that's been left untouched by the heat there. I've seen it. It's incomplete, and we're pulling up images of the drone before detonation. Triangle within the hollow of another triangle, because basic geometric shapes aren't the most basic of designs the galaxy over. It does narrow things down some. Keyword being some. I'd like to narrow it down greatly, Herbert remarks. Into a wider galaxy, Part 485, Herald of Red Blades. There was a prickling at his elbows and the back of his neck. Something is not up, but not right either. His communicator starts buzzing and he looks at it. Interesting. He looks up and around, and there are a few drones above the still growing and ever more chaotic crowd. His eyes narrow and he sends a confirmation that there are indeed Tri-Solution brand drones in the area. What's wrong? Velocity picks up on things. Her head is bent over his and she's looking at his screen. He's not trying to hide it. Wait, what? It is confusing. What is the gripe someone has with the Vishanian? Your targets and enemies were limited almost entirely to the Apuk, and later we undaunted. Everything else was low-profile observation, Harold asks and Velocity shrugs. As always, more information is needed. Tri-Solution drones? Velocity asks. I'm not personally familiar with the brand. I am, Giria says. And what can you tell me? They're popular, but not top 100 level popular. They're tough and they take to modifications very well. However, about half, if not more, of the drones are torn apart for parts to be slapped onto other, better drones, or used as parts for custom work, especially the engine and anti-gravity module, Giria says. Funny enough, their second most common use is as a weapon. They're tough enough to carry a fairly powerful charge, and fast enough to basically be used as a guided bomb. And that's what someone did. Apparently the target was either or both an Apuk ambassador on Centris and or Kiyu, her recently assigned Vishanian assistant and student, Harold explains. Unfortunately, the blast itself destroyed pretty much everything, but the company logo on the side of the drone. Previous images just confirmed it was externally a standard model. Okay, but why? Giria asks and looks around. And will these ones be the same? Well, Centris is the political core to the galaxy, and Zalwar one of the primary, if not the primary transport hub. Both incredibly important and public, but for different reasons, Harold considers. So what do you think is going on? It can be any number of things. Someone might have a grudge against the ambassador and assumed she would jump to protect a civilian, so it was targeted that way. We could have someone paranoid that is looking for and attacking novel stealth methods because they're of the belief that no one with good intent goes around unseen. Or with how wide the galaxy is, there is any number of odd or unusual reasons for someone to decide they simply hate you and have had enough of your shit, or want to start something. It's getting out that the Vashanian are under Apuk control, and as an older government, there are a lot of people that would profit one way or another by making the Apuk look weak or incompetent or just, Harold shrugs. The more you think about it, the more potential reasons there are for someone to try starting things. And until someone tries again, or some solid evidence is dug out of the burnt-out remains of that first attempt, there's not going to be much in the way of answers. And they used a very common kind of drone to do it, so it's not like we can narrow down the suspects to a manageable number by looking at the sales data. And with preservation runes and the like, it's entirely possible that the drone is old. To say nothing of stolen property, which is always an issue, and hey, a voice says, and Harold cuts himself off to turn and regard the Valoran man walking up. He looks like a goose, a meadowwing Valoran. Have you seen this woman? She's likely been harassing people with pictures of me. I'm sorry, I haven't met enough Valoran to fully get over species face blindness yet, but I have seen a meadowwing Valoran woman in that direction and speaking to a member of my species, Harold says, pointing to where he knows Observer Wu is. Right, thank you, he says, walking off. What was that about? Velocity asks. I can see over the crowd. There is a meadowwing Valoran speaking at length to Observer Wu, and he's getting a slightly glazed-over look in his eyes. I think she's either boring him, annoying him, or using some kind of axiom effect on him. Whichever it is, he's not paying full attention, Winifred says as she shields her eyes with a hand to look around. Is our new friend making a beeline for her? Made a beeline for her. He's reached them, and she has him in a combination hug and headlock and is showing off something from her communicator. Observer Wu looks more interested now, but slightly concerned. Mind if I climb up and take a look? Harold asks. You may, Winifred says, and Harold climbs up her side and sits on her shoulder to look over the crowd. Oh yeah, he's fine. She's a doting mother going insane with her son, Harold notes before looking around. Fair amount of tri-solution drones. Not many Vashanian in the crowd. In fact, barring family, he spots a drone scanning the area Rain went to and tracks its camera lens. Right to Rain. Trouble. What is it? It's tracking Rain, but it's not doing anything, Harold notes as he slowly withdraws a modified railgun pistol with casings that he inserts a magnetic bug into. He closes up the casing, inserts the round into the railgun, and takes the time to aim, then fires off the shot. It's just subsonic, and the casing comes apart in the air to launch the bug onto the drone in the distance. It lands just to the right of the tri-solution symbol. Bit more crosswind than I expected. I was aiming for the triangle itself, Harold notes. You're just tracking it, Velocity asks. It hasn't done anything but spot Rain yet, and this is a chance to get more answers. But what is clear that whatever tried to pull its nonsense on Centris is also here on Zalwar, which Herbert needs to know about. But why hasn't it done anything with Rain? Velocity asks in concern as she starts to move. Don't, Harold states. Why not? Rain is the physically youngest and least mature Vashanian in the wider galaxy. Outside the fleets, she's the smallest and least developed. She breaks the pattern of your species. She looks closer to an underfed and stretched Miak with novel stealth and no tail. If it's targeting Vashanian, then she's likely partially triggering its search algorithms, but is off just enough to make it hesitate or go into a feedback loop. But you're a fully developed Vashanian. Even with the growing belly, you're a lot closer to its likely target than Rain is. But this is good. It's telling us a lot. Whoever is targeting the Vashanian is doing so through the stealth. Can see right through it. How, though? I don't know. We need more information, and for that we need the drone to fuck off back home to wherever it came from and not set off the bomb that is presumably in its casing. Think it'll trigger anything? It might, but if it was going to, it would have gone off by now. I doubt it, though. The drones are being deployed out here, and there's a light snow always being pushed around. So the drone has to accept that there may be a bit more weight to things, Harold says, and there is a moment of consideration before Harold leans forward. What? Trinity of women on intercept, heading towards Rain from different angles, all of them in casual clothine with clear armor on underneath. Harold says, bringing up his communicator, taking pictures, and then sending it to the private streams, as well as a quick update. Okay, back to work. I'm going to get my daughter out of the fire. Excuse me, ladies. We're going, Giria says. I get that you move at the speed of light, but Giria, there is a jungle Nagasha as one of the 3 girls en route to Rain. She's yours. Javra and Dumaya, I need overwatch in the sky in case more drones show up. Agatha, you and Winifred are to be physical blocks to keep Rain safe. Velocity, the drones are likely after you the most. Can you project your stealth some distance from yourself? See if you can't smoke out which tri-solution drone are hostile with a toss rock or 2. Uma, you're going for their Feli who's fiddling with a plasma sword. I got the synth tret coursing electricity through her palms. Any objections? Harold says, pointing from place to guide things. If things get truly violent, Winifred asks, if they want to start a big fight in the middle of a crowd like this, then they're going to get piled on a mile high. No problem. Nearly everyone here is a potential ally. Even if only 1 in 1,000 assist us, we still have them outnumbered hundreds to 1. Easily. Oh, this is going to be fun. It's so rare that a problem lives long enough or comes in slow enough for it to be a family affair. Usually Mr. Bloodhungry heads it off at the pass. Sorry, working fast and efficient is almost at bad habit level for me. Just remember that the more we take or keep intact, the more information and answers we get out of it. But answers and information never trump safety. This family is only allowed to grow, not shrink, Harold says. Any questions? Only why we haven't already begun moving, Giria says as she starts slithering. Harold hops off Winifred's shoulder and offers them all a casual 2-finger salute, and then vanishes as he grabs at his natural stealth. Uma all but slinks into the crowds as both Winifred and Agatha start marching to where Rain is. Javra and Dumya are already in the air, and Velocity picks up a few pebbles from the ground and starts wrapping around her stealth field to them. She throws them up and away from her. Several drones above the crowd jump. It draws the attention of a few people, and Velocity looks around to see just who noticed. Much more cautious now and pausing to put a hand on her stomach. She can almost feel them. Her insides churn and Axiom begins pouring into her. 30 paces away, Harold pauses and looks back. He doesn't sense any threat, though, so he makes a note of it and grabs the wrist of the synth. Hello, miss. Mind explaining why you're heading to my daughter with electrically charged palms? He asks as he holds one hand comfortably and the other comes around to try and get him by reflex. And she freezes even as she gets him full in the face, but the brand means it does nothing. He smiles. That's not very polite. What are you? An undaunted father, and you've been making a direct line for my eldest daughter, he says and starts a squeeze on the wrist he's grabbed. Now, mind explaining why? The Vish are dangerous, the synth hisses. That is a Vishanian, free of their makers. Not possible. Get the others in the drones to stand down. Let's talk through this and we can compare notes. No one needs to get hurt, and quite honestly, I'd prefer it if we didn't get into a needless fight over a misunderstanding, Harold says, and she pauses before he can see something flash across her eyes thanks to tiny projectors built into her face. The language was both unfamiliar and the writing gone too fast for him to memorize fully. Very well, she says, and the electricity fades from her palms. Let us speak. Let us speak of the threat grinding its way into the Empire. Not that I expect something as unreasonable as an undaunted to understand. Unreasonable? Empire? Are you from Labran, Malashana, or Vanaruk? How dare you compare our glorious overlady with those swine? Please answer the question, Harold says blandly. But she's clearly lost her temper as a blade shoots out of her knee, and he has to step quickly and delicately to lock her leg and keep her from gelding him. Ma'am, as a synth, you're immune to traditional knockout techniques, meaning that if you keep this up, I have to go very, very mean. Then he twists as hard and as fast as he can to flip her and send her pointed stomach first at the sky. The flak shot from her stomach rockets upwards and clips a drone before he slams her down, face first, into the cold earth and stone of Zolwar. Last chance, Harold says as the drone she clips spirals around, then decides to simply detonate. The crowd is scattering and everyone is drawing weapons as people move to figure out just what the hell is going on. Surrender peacefully and talk, or keep fighting and be interrogated after a beating. The fact he has to dodge knives jutting out of her heels gives him all the answer and excuse to shatter her metal spine.